Hello folks, it's Pete from NorthAmericaByRail.info. It's Sunday, September the 28th, 2025, and we are about to start on another epic train journey, this time on Via Rail's Ocean from Montreal to Halifax. At the start of this trip, we will be departing Aldershot Via Station near Hamilton, Ontario, and we'll be taking two connecting Via trains to Montreal, where we will board the eastbound Ocean for Halifax. So it's around 9:30 a.m. and we are waiting for our Via train to arrive here at the Aldershot Via and Go station.
Welcome aboard train number 64 en route to Montreal. We'll stop at Gilwood, Oshawa, Culver. Occupy the seating car shown on your boarding pass. For a more peaceful travel experience, please set your phone to vibrate and use headphones with all electronic devices.
No, we gotta reserve.
de la gare de Kingston, mon nom est notre directeur de service de 64 en direction de Montréal. Alors, on a décidé cela avec quelques peu tardive à la gare de Kingston. Pour votre sécurité, veuillez vous familiariser avec les consignes de bord de votre voiture. En lisant le dépliant, puis dans la pochette du siège devant vous et en recommande de sortir de cette voie le plus près. Veuillez s'il vous plaît vos tickets prêts pour la validation, patient bon voyage. Bon, de quitter le train. Aussi portez une attention particulière à l'espace entre le train et le quai lorsque vous descendez et marchez au centre du quai loin des lits jaunes. Au nom de Air Canada et de tout l'équipage, nous sommes ravis de vous avoir accueillis aujourd'hui et au plaisir de vous prévenir à bientôt. Your attention please, we will be arriving at Montreal Central Station, our final destination in approximately 10 minutes. For your safety, we ask that you remain seated until the train comes to a complete stop in the terminal, and please be sure that you have all your personal belongings before leaving the train. Please mind the gap between the train and platform while exiting and walk in the middle of the platform away from the yellow line. On behalf of Air Canada and Interact, it has been a pleasure having you aboard with us today. We look forward to serving you again soon.
Machine Yard. I'm familiar with this place.
you. So we've arrived in Montreal and we're heading to the Panorama Lounge, which is Via Rail's first class lounge for sleeping car passengers.
Please consult with your attendant for specific times.
I'm having the kappa.
It is strictly forbidden to consume personal alcoholic beverages while on board in open areas.
Yeah, sounds good.
Disrespect.
So dinner time on the ocean.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I like these. I like.
Take a picture?
Beet salad, Chardonnay,
You're nice.
white wine,
Hi, sorry. Yes.
and a vegan salad.
Another bottle, glass of
It was the back. Oh yeah, I'll bring it
and a
on.
water.
And a water.
Thank you.
Salmon. And dairy-free chicken and potatoes.
Did you get mine?
I did. And for dessert, cherry cheesecake and a dairy-free Nanaimo bar. It's at this point that I should probably mention that reservations for meal times are made beforehand. In this case, for our meal in the dining car tonight, reservations were made before boarding in the Panorama Lounge in Montreal Central Station. And for tomorrow, meal reservations will be made at breakfast time when we go for breakfast in the dining car. Partially because our train was late leaving the station, it is now dusk and very hard to film moving footage out the window of our train. I had hoped to capture the Victoria Bridge over the St. Lawrence River, but because of the darkness, I'm going to have to just include this photograph of the bridge instead.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you, you too.
My pleasure. For breakfast in the morning, folks, it's a first come, first serve. We'll start at 6 a.m. We run till about 9:30, and we will make last call for ready? Coordinator's job is to teach you stuff, learning stuff. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about the train. If you have any information that you can give to me, I appreciate it. So I'm always open for suggestions and add-ons. Most of my presentations will be happening in the service car where the red seats are. There will be tomorrow afternoon a wine tasting that will happen in here. A little bit of information about the ocean train. It had its first run from Montreal to Halifax on July 4th, 1904. So we just celebrated 121 years of... I just got started if you want to join us. I'm gonna go grab you some glasses. So the distance between Halifax and Montreal or vice versa is 1,346 kilometers. If you go in miles, 826 miles. We have 27 stops total. There are some stops where nobody is scheduled to get on or off. So when that happens, the engineers will slow down. If somebody is standing on the platform, they will ask, are you traveling with us today? If the person says yes, we'll pull up, we'll get them on board, and we'll continue on our journey. Most of the time, it's people taking pictures or videos. You're gonna see tripods all along the route. People love taking pictures and videos of the train. So if they say, no, we're just taking videos, we continue on our route. So 27 stops total. CN, Canadian National, is the freight trains. They own the tracks. So there are some times that we have to sit still and let the freight trains go by because they have priority. So that could be one of the things that could delay us throughout the night or tomorrow throughout the day. So today on the ocean equipment, we have two different types of equipment. The car that we're sitting in right now is a Renaissance economy coach car. So all of our Renaissance cars have the outside shell a greenish color, like my scarf here. The inside of the cars are all bluish, as well as the sleepers. So if you're in sleeper 30, 37, 38, 39, you would be in a Renaissance sleeper. We also have HEP equipment. So the HEP equipment would be stainless steel on the outside. The inside is all refurbished and it's a brown leather upholstery that's on there. The HEP equipment was built in the 1950s. They've all been refurbished. They've all been insulated to sustain winter conditions. The Renaissance equipment was built for the Channel in England. Whoever had started this project went bankrupt. So Canada purchased the already started equipment, finished building them, and we've been running them. 10 years ago when I started working at Via Rail, we would just run either Renaissance or HEP. It was one full Renaissance train or one full HEP train. The HEP train would only come at Christmas time and we would call that the special train. Throughout the years there are some parts that haven't been able to be replaced because again it was built for England or for the US in the 1950s or in the 1980s, so the parts are not being built anymore. So they had to decommission some of the cars, and in order to make two full sets of trains, one for each direction, we had to combine the two types of equipment. So I'm gonna start at the front of the train and I'm gonna make my way back here and I'm gonna explain the different types of equipment that you're gonna see along the route. I highly suggest if you're in the Renaissance cars to go up to the HEP equipment. Car 40, 41 is the HEP equipment sleepers. If you're in 4041, I suggest you come back here and visit the Renaissance cars just to see the different types, because it's completely different, the sleeping accommodations. It's pretty neat. So all the way at the front today we have 3 engines. The engines were built in the early 1980s by GM. They run approximately 3,000 horsepower, 16 cylinders, and can reach up to a speed of 153 kilometers an hour. I've never seen them go 153. 147 was the highest I've ever seen. I tend to feel like they go faster in the Quebec region, and I think the reason is because the tracks are in better condition than throughout New Brunswick. So those would be the 3 engines. Following the engines we have the baggage car. The engineer's job is to take care of the luggage, so if you have registered luggage, it would be right behind the engines. Following the engines we have, or following the baggage car, we have 3 HEP sleepers. So 40, 41 is for passengers. The third one is for us crew. Some of us will be sleeping in there tonight. The HEP sleepers all have a communal washroom. They all have a communal shower. And they have 3 different types of sleeping accommodations. So you have the berths, the roomettes, and the actual bedrooms. So we'll start with the berths. We have 3 lower, 3 upper. It's about the width of this. So when you walk in there, you're gonna see 2 benches similar to this. We remove the table. The 2 couches go in like this. We put a mattress on top. We make the bed. We close the curtains. Those are your accommodations for the night. The upper berth is very similar. However, it's up top. When you go into an airplane and they put the luggage and they clamp, it looks exactly like that. But when we pull it down, there's a mattress in there. So we make up the bed with a nice white sheet. So then we go into the roomettes. So we've got 4 lower, 4 upper. So the roomettes are single person accommodations. You can't fit 2 people in there. It's very small. It's about the width of this. So you go in, you sit on your little bench. Right in front of you here is the toilet bowl. Luckily there's a cover, so you don't have to watch that stuff.
Yeah.
In front of you there's a big mirror. Underneath the mirror is your bed. So the bed pulls out over top of the toilet, over top of the bench. The door closes, it latches, and that would be a lower roomette. Upper roomette is very similar. except the bed is not underneath the mirror, it's behind you like a Murphy bed. So we clamp, comes down on top of the sofa, on top of the toilet, the door closes, it latches, and that would be an upper roomette. And that's why the communal washroom comes in handy. You don't have to put your bed away. You can go use the communal washroom. Then we've got 4 actual bedrooms, A, B, C, D. They all have individual bathrooms. They all have the double bunk beds. Room A has a fold-out couch, so now we can accommodate a family of 3 in room A. B is the standard 2 bunk beds. C and D has a retractable wall. So now we can accommodate a family of 4. Or we can put the wall and have couples in C and a couple in D, like normal. So those would be your 3 types of sleeping accommodations in the HEP sleepers. So we have 3 of those. Following the 3 HEP sleepers, we've got 2 HEP coach economy cars. So it's double seats on each side. The space, and I heard you say this earlier and I loved it, the space for your leg is wider. And the fun part about those cars is right now everybody's sitting backwards except for us 4. In the HEP coach cars, we can turn the seats around. So everybody would be facing forward. These ones here, you can't move them. So that's the difference between the HEP coach and the Renaissance coach. Following the 2 HEP coaches, you're going to find 1 big empty car. Along the walls, there are the flags of the provinces of the Maritimes as well as Quebec, and the Acadian flag with a little description of each province. There's also a freezer, a closet, and a cage for our storage. The sole purpose for this car is so that we could connect the HEP equipment to the Renaissance equipment. So they've converted one car, the coupling, so we could attach. So we call it the transition car. We go from HEP to Renaissance and vice versa. Following the transition car, you're going to find the exact same car as this. The only difference is this one has wheelchair accessible. There's a space right here for the wheelchair as well as a huge washroom. So if we have passengers in economy that need wheelchair accessible, we use this car. It's very rare that we use it for that purpose, so they let me use it for alcohol presentations in here. When you serve alcohol on a moving vehicle, there needs to be a seat for every single person. So should I do this in the service car, right now I wouldn't be able to serve you some champagne because I only have 8 seats. So tomorrow, when we do the wine tasting, it'll be here. Everything else will be in the service car. So the economy Renaissance coach car is in service. You'll find some people in there. Following the exact same car as this, you're gonna find a service car. The service car has red seats. It has Wi-Fi. That one has a canteen accessible to everybody. Following the service car, you have the dining car. Most of you probably had dinner already there, right? Perfect. Breakfast tomorrow morning is first come, first serve. Starts at 6 Eastern time. Goes about till 8:39. They'll make an announcement 30 minutes before closing for breakfast. They'll say last call for breakfast. While you're having breakfast, somebody will come by and do reservations for lunch. So that's how it works for breakfast and lunch tomorrow. Following the dining car, you have another service car that is only accessible for sleeper passengers. It also has the red seats. It also has the Wi-Fi, and it has a coffee station. So coffee, tea, hot chocolate is free. If you go to the coffee station and it's empty because I'm back here talking, you can go to the other service car at the canteen and they'll provide these items for free as well. Water is provided by your attendant. At the canteen, they might ask you what car you're in or who your attendant is. That just tells us that you're actually in sleepers. Following the service car, we get into the Renaissance sleepers, so 30, 37, 38, 39. All the cars have 10 rooms except for car 30. They all have double bunk beds. They all have individual bathrooms. From 1 to 6 has showers. From 6 to 10, no showers. And you might notice car number 30 only has 9 rooms. And the reason for that is because we took room 9 and 10. We made it bigger for wheelchair accessible. So room 30, or car 30, room 9 is wheelchair accessible. It's huge. And then we have this car here, which is a economy coach car for wheelchair accessible, used by me for alcohol stuff. Behind us here is an empty baggage car, because when they return on Wednesday, they're going to take the engines from the front there and put them here. This is going to become the front of the train. That's it. That's the ocean.
That's it.
Any questions?
So we've returned to our sleeping car, and our attendant has agreed to let me film how the berths are made up for nighttime use. Partially because it's fall time and the days are shorter, and partially because our train departed Montreal late, we will not get to see the mountains east of Montreal during the daylight, so I'm including some pictures of them here. But normally, if you were to travel the train at the peak of summer, when the days are longer, you would be able to see Mont Saint Hilaire and Mount Shefford in daylight. Leaving Montreal, we traversed CN's St. Hyacinthe subdivision. Since passing the town of St. Hyacinthe, our train is now on the CN Drummondville subdivision. At Charny, Quebec, our train will leave the Drummondville subdivision main line and proceed on to the CN Bridge subdivision branch line over the St. Lawrence River to Saint Foy, where there is a shuttle connection for passengers going to Quebec City. A point of fact is that the Quebec Bridge that our train crosses is the longest cantilever bridge in the world. This bridge collapsed twice during construction, killing 88 workers before finally being completed in 1917. After stopping at Saint Foy, the train will then reverse back over the bridge sub and onto the main line at Charny. Proceeding forward again, our train leaves Charny and will pass CN's Joffre Yard and head east over the Montmagny subdivision. It is now about 6:10 a.m. Eastern Time, and our train is now traveling through the Matapedia River Valley in eastern Quebec. Breakfast will be first come, first served, starting around 6:30 a.m. But before we go to breakfast, I'm going to film some footage of the valley and Matapedia area.
Different, but yes. Or, yeah, 4 bucks. Yeah. Yeah.
Tricky stuff.
Talia?
Transcontinental. They come with berries and sauce. Turkey sauce. I've seen sometimes people get corn They get the pancakes, but they want fruit as well. Yeah, but the pancake comes with some kind of food. I gotta take a picture of friends. Yeah. The train.
So breakfast time on the ocean. This is my dairy-free meal. Bacon and egg breakfast sandwich and potatoes.
You know, after
So this is our berth set up for daytime use. As you can see, there's 2 armchairs on either side of a big picture window. There's mirrors, reading lights, and coat hooks. And luggage can be stored underneath the seats. And I always like to ask our sleeping car attendant to install one of the portable tables that are available for sleeping car passengers traveling in berths. People that like to watch my train videos will know that I like to bring along my scanner, my Uniden scanner, which is programmed for all of the frequencies along the train's route. That way I can hear the head-end crew, the onboard attendants, and the CN dispatchers. And I also like to bring along my Garmin as well, my GPS, so I can see exactly where the train is. One of the things that should be mentioned is that berths do not have a 120 volt outlet like the bedrooms and roomettes do, so there's no outlets in the berths. So what I've done is I like to bring along a 20,000 milliamp hour charger pack to run my scanner and GPS, and that 20,000 milliamp hour battery pack will run my scanner and GPS both continuously for about 24 hours, which is long enough for this train route. I also have a 10,000 milliamp hour charger pack for my camera battery charger. As an alternative, you can also charge your camera batteries or cell phone in the washroom, as there is a 120 volt outlet in the communal washroom. So one of the perks that VIA provides its passengers is these handy route guides that describe the route, the ocean's route from Montreal to Halifax. And now I'm not going to go into great detail about the scenic points noted in this route guide, because we'll be seeing a lot of them from the train, and I'll be calling them out as our train traverses eastern Quebec and the Maritimes today. But to start off with, you can see it has information on the major cities like Montreal, St. Lambert, St. Hyacinthe, Drummondville, St. Foy, Montmagny, La Pocatière, Rivière-du-Loup, Trois-Pistoles, Rimouski, Montjoly, Sayabec, Amqui, Matapedia, Campbellton, New Brunswick, Charlot, New Brunswick, Jacquet River, New Brunswick, Petit Roger, New Brunswick, Bathurst, Miramichi, Rogersville, Moncton, Sackville, Amherst, Spring Hill Junction, Truro, and Halifax, Nova Scotia. So one of the things I often get asked is, how much does this trip cost? So here I've included a screenshot of our reservation for this trip on the ocean to Halifax. And as you can see, there's 2 adult fares, one for me, one for my wife. And the fares are broken down into 2 parts. The first line is the berth discounted fare. That's the fare for the ocean train from Montreal to Halifax. And the second line is the economy fare, and that is the fare for the connecting train from Aldershot to Toronto to Montreal. So as you can see, the economy fare is $143.50, and that is for the Aldershot to Toronto to Montreal train. And the berth discounted fare is $465.03, and that is for the actual ocean train, the sleeping car train from Montreal to Halifax. And that $465.03 includes the transit or transportation fare from Montreal to Halifax, and it also includes all your meals and your sleeping accommodation on board the train. And it is pretty good bang for your buck, considering if you had to rent a car and pay for hotels, gas, and food to go from Montreal to Halifax, it could easily cost you more money to do that than to take the train. And one last thing is a note about the Berth discounted fare. When we booked this trip, we booked it on a Tuesday. Via has a promotion called Discount Tuesdays, where they offer discounted fares if you book the trip on a Tuesday. So that's what we've done here. So there you can see the price for the trip. And actually, one final thing is at the very bottom, you can see meal prepared with lactose-free ingredients. Via Rail is very good at accommodating people with dietary needs. So if you have any food restrictions or allergies, you should make that known to Via Rail at the time you book your trip, and they will prepare the meals in advance so you could have the correct meal for you on the train. And another thing about accommodations is Via Rail is very accommodating to passengers with not just dietary needs but also mobility needs. If you have a mobility impairment, you can make that known at the time of your booking, and they'll put in a service request to have red cap service, to have someone help you with a people mover to and from the train when you're at the station, and boarding assistance if that's what you need. So hopefully that sufficiently explains the fare structure and the cost of a trip on Via Rail's Ocean from Montreal to Halifax.
Every club is praying.
Oh, yes.
It's the speed from the trees
Get
that
a
go by.
glass of ice when we come back.
CN detector, Newcastle, 7-5. No alarms. Temperature 2-0. C. Total axle 8-4. Speed 3-2.
So that was a hot box detector, and what they do is they scan the wheel bearings of the train as it goes by to make sure there's no overheated bearings.
Here would you sleep?
The 14 off 55 on Newcastle, Sept Junction and Aldershot.
switch from here.
14 entering main track at mile 61.5, good Pacific junction with North Street.
See you there.
Yep, sure.
Yes, indeed.
I think you're gonna have that.
We lost it.
Yeah, not too hard.
Excuse me. My menu seems to be different from everybody else's.
Oh, that just got mixed in. There we go.
Thank you.
It's a chicken souvlaki that they have for the lactose.
So lunchtime and last meal on the ocean. Vegan salad, balsamic glaze, clam chowder, beet salad, lobster roll, and the lactose-free meal is chicken and potatoes. For dessert, chocolate mousse and dairy-free Nanaimo bar.
your cabin until the train comes to a complex stop in the center. Thank you for choosing the Royal Canada. On behalf of the entire crew, we wish you a pleasant day. afternoon. May I have attention, please? We'll be arriving at the Hammer station in approximately 10 minutes.
notice that some of the still pictures that I've included were taken from a car that is no longer in service on Via Rail's Ocean, and that car is the park car or the dome car shown here on the tail end of the Ocean in a picture that I've taken on a previous trip. Now these cars are still used on other Via long distance trains, but they are no longer used on the Ocean, and the reason for that has nothing to do with Via Rail's management, but actually has everything to do with decisions made by the host railroads that Via Rail operates on. In November of 2020, the old agreement between Via Rail and the Port of Halifax came to an end, and the Port of Halifax then informed Via Rail that after November, the space occupied by the turning track, where the train is turned around after arriving in Halifax, would be needed for another use. So in most cases, Via Rail does not own the track that its trains run on, but instead pays the host railroads for track access. And these host railroads can include such entities as Canadian National or the Port of Halifax. So as you can see from the pictures, the dome car used on the Ocean had to be coupled to the tail end of the train because there is no vestibule for passengers to pass through at the tail end of the dome car. So that is the reason it had to be used at the tail end of the train. So now with the loss of the turning track, what Via Rail had to do was make the train bi-directional, and to do that they placed a baggage car at each end of the train, including the end shown here where the parked car used to be. So that precluded the use of the parked car or the dome car, and that is why there is no more dome car on the train. So as you can see, it's not Via's fault there's no more dome car on the Ocean, but rather an operational constraint forced upon Via by the host railroads. It's not an ideal solution, but at least it allows the train to keep running without the use of a turnaround track at Halifax. And as you can see from my video, it's still a great trip and one I would certainly recommend.
14 for Halifax. We're coming down, or 11 tonight. I can aerial down, probably have to put this back at 6 tonight.
Arrived at Halifax Union Station, and my impression of the trip so far is it's been an amazing trip. The food was good, the onboard service and the attendants were great, the scenery was great, and overall, I highly recommend this trip. Have a good trip. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we made it.
We've arrived in Halifax, and we're going to be staying here for 5 days on vacation while we explore the sights and attractions of the region. And I will be including a few minutes of footage of our layover in Halifax in this video.
The which? Yeah.
Baby, listen up, don't stand too close. I've got so much emotion, no one lies. All the lies you go through. Mama is brought up history. Stop, don't stop, and won't you know? All of the
So we're here to visit the HMCS Sackville, which is a World War II corvette, and it's operating as a floating museum here at Halifax Harbor.
Yeah, just you know, documenting all the time. No, I know. Not there. Oh no, I have stories about I can
So look at the ending. It was moved by, can you see, by turning a crank shaft. Because it's longer. Look how big they are.
there's something inside the squid too. I don't know what it is.
Basically, you eat it out of the thing.
Yeah. She's just gone to get yours now.
Stomach chest.
That's 9 years now, terrifyingly a third of my life. What about everyone else on board? Do we have anyone from outside the country with us today? Or England here? Alright. What about you guys? Sorry? My hearing is terrible. One more time. New York City, there we go. Welcome on board. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? Alright, so our Canadians on board. Anyone else got PEI? Newfoundland? Don't worry, that's not bad. It's okay. Alright, so welcome to Halifax. Another name for this place is Toronto. Translates to Great Harbour. Oh, that's the indigenous name for the area. Now the indigenous people in this region are the Mi'kmaq. Broader area is called Mi'kmaq. It covers roughly all the maritime provinces. Now, this thing we're on today is something called a Lark 5. It stands for lighter, amphibious, resupply cargo. The 5 stands for 5-ton capacity. These things were first built over on our right-hand side here. We have St. Paul's. This is an Anglican church. It's the oldest building anywhere in Halifax. It dates back to 1750, the year after the English arrived. This also means it's the oldest Protestant place of worship anywhere in North America. One of the things about Halifax here is, well, it is kind of just one big hill. Technically speaking, Citadel Hill here is a glacial drumlet. But if you know what that means, you know a lot more about geology than I do. For our purposes today, the English had a great view over the harbour. These buildings are a little more than, not quite as old as the city itself. So they could, see everyone coming and going, and well, shoot down at any pesky Frenchman if the need arose. These tanks mostly just up on top here we have Fort George, named after King George II, who was the reigning British monarch at the time it was built. Coming up on our right-hand side, we have the Old Town Clock. This was commissioned by Sir Edward Duke of Kent back when he was in charge of Fort George. As to legend what happened, his soldiers had a bad habit of showing up late for work, and every time they did, they go, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir, I just can't afford a pocket watch." So we had this built so they wouldn't have the excuse. Now, of course, it's got 4 different clock faces. They're powered by hand-wound mechanisms. They're not synchronized with each other. They're normally around 5 minutes off, but of course it's never the same 5 minutes. At least he tried. Now these days, Fort George and all of Citadel Hill are operated by Parks Canada, and they have a bunch of interpreters on site. As we're going by here, the gentleman in the very heavy-duty black wool coat there is an example of the 78 Highlanders, who have been stationed here in the 1800s. They also have other generations of soldiers on site, the tradespeople who worked here, and the families of those soldiers. As we are going around here, this dry ditch around the entire perimeter. It's somewhere between 14 and 40 feet deep, depending on where you are, and it is affectionately known as the Pit of Death. Now, when this was an active military site, one of the things they did not do was cut the grass. The idea behind this is to be quite tall, somewhere around waist height, so any soldiers running up would not be able to see that pit until they were right on top of it, at which point they would hopefully fall or be pushed in by the people behind them and, be dealt with accordingly. You'll notice we're doing a lot of twists and turns to get around the perimeter of Fort George here. That's because, if you look from above, it is shaped like an 8-pointed star. It has about 6 of these sharp angular sections, like this big dirt rock triangle we're going around right now. These are meant for deflecting cannon fire, but much better at it than something like a rounded evil castle. When they were first building Fort, now, I would like to think we have a pretty impressive fort here on Fort George. Anyone want to make any guesses about how many times we've repelled an attack? We got 0, 0. That's another 0, isn't it? Alright. Anybody else? Oh, we got a 1. I tricked one person. No, it's never actually happened. As we are turning here, on our left-hand side, we have the Royal Artillery Park. This is an active military site to this day. We've got a reserve battalion stationed here, but it's been around for quite a while. Part of what this means is they have the oldest military library collection anywhere in the country. In a minute here, we're going to be going by the Halifax Public Gardens, so I should warn everyone on the right-hand side of the boat, especially those of you up top. There's a lot of trees along the public gardens, and they're going to try and poke one of you in the face, so watch out for that, please. And here we have the Halifax Public Gardens. Now, these are Victorian-style gardens right in the heart of the city. To be considered Victorian gardens, you're supposed to have a few things, such as paths wide enough for two ladies in Victorian-style hoop skirts to comfortably walk side by side. Oh, sorry, don't ask you to stay seated. At least 4 different types of trees. Well, we have 140. Another expectation is that you have water features with model boats. We have 5 water features. One is a pond. It has 2 model boats in it. One of these is a model of the Titanic. It is not our first model of the Titanic. The first one sank. Not a joke. Rumor has the duck sat on it. Get past that tree, you might notice that the 2 middle ones are closed. They're the ones with the seal of the city of Halifax on them. That's because these are the royal gates, and they are only open for members of the royal family. Us commoners make do with the little ones on either side there. Last time we did have a visit would have been back in 2014 when then Prince Charles and Camilla stopped by, but you never know, they might come back. One of those is the public gardens. There also used to be some underground springs running along the Spring Garden Road side of the public gardens. That was there until back in the 90s when we were building a new house downtown to the mouth of the harbor. On our left-hand side here, we have the Halifax Memorial Library. This was the main public library of the city until the current one opened back in that section of Spring Garden Road. On our left, we have St. Mary's Basilica. It's a Catholic basilica, and that granite spire there is most likely one of the tallest ones anywhere on the continent. The spire section is 128 feet, the tip of the sidewalk is about 189 feet. Over on the oldest European graveyard anywhere in the region, dates back to 1749. If that year is sounding a little familiar to you, it's because the first people who are buried there on the original voyage over to settle Halifax. Unfortunately, though, they died on that voyage and were buried the day after the ships landed. Crossing the Atlantic in the 1700s at great fair health. Alright, we are heading along Barrington Street right now, Halifax. The way we do historic properties is you have to preserve the facade, but there's a lot of flexibility for internal renovations. If you are ever curious about the buildings in question, those plaques do have the name and date of construction, so you can go look them up online. Coming up on our left here, we have the garrison grounds. First there is St. Paul's, you might recognize that from earlier. The broader area was originally built as a military muster point. They used it for various military drills, parades, and that kind of thing back in the day. These days we use it for various civic events. As we're coming up here, you see this cenotaph. This is where we have our Remembrance Day ceremony. We'll also have our New Year's Eve countdown and Christmas tree lighting ceremony on site. In 1996, we had someone visiting Halifax by the name of Harry Houdini. Now, I can't tell you exactly what the animosity was, but our mayor was very insistent that we throw him in those jail cells. I just made him for all of 3 hours, at which point Mr. Houdini broke out and went over to the nearest bar. We found the mayor sitting there and went, "Well, sir, if you give me that clothing back, I'll buy you a drink." As we are coming up to City Hall there, keep an eye on the lower windows there. You might notice there's a little sign for us. There's one that said a little harbor off in there if you didn't get a glance. Pretty sure the intern. Alright, we're going to be hopping into the water in just a minute, and when we do that, our captain will have to let the harbor trap Caesar's Palace down in Las Vegas. You would think the people who built Caesar's Palace would know how to run a casino, but apparently they never made any money, and for separate reasons it is now owned by the province of Nova Scotia.
I got a little bit wet.
Welcome to Halifax Harbor, everybody. Logan was quite enthusiastic with that one. I'll pass that around if anyone else needs it. Over on our left-hand side here, we have the Halifax Naval Dockyards. Now, these are the oldest naval dockyards anywhere in North America, the largest ones in the country. This is the second deepest ice-free harbor anywhere in the world, though. The deepest point past the dockyards there is 271 feet deep at low tide. We do have a decent amount of local wildlife around here, although they are being incredibly shy today. You might notice some gulls and cormorants hanging out. Those are the main types of waterfowl you'll see in the harbor. We do also occasionally get ospreys and herons. Over on our left side, we have the community of Dartmouth. Now these days, this is all part of the Halifax regional municipalities. It's been one city since the 90s, but these are the water edge of the historic properties, which are the oldest buildings anywhere here on the Halifax waterfront. That green one is something known as Privateer's Wharf. If you're not familiar, privateers are pretty much just legalized pirates. The deal they would have is they would get authorization from the government, which in our case meant a letter of marque from the British Crown, that would give them permission to go raid enemy vessels. And at the time, that was pretty much anyone flying French or American flag. They would steal whatever they could and bring it right back here to Halifax to auction it off. In theory, they were supposed to give a quarter of their profits back to the British Crown, but, well, we are dealing with pirates here, so what actually happened is a separate story. Continuing on, we have the Halifax Ferry Terminal. You see the white, yellow, and blue ferry over there? So Halifax has the second longest continuously running saltwater ferry service anywhere in the world. When it first started, we had one gentleman with one rowboat and returned exactly one passenger at a time. And it took him something like 2 hours to get between the Halifax and Dartmouth sides of the harbour. What else is continuing on ahead, this red bit poking out here is Cable Wharf. So then, because Halifax is one of the termination points for the Transcontinental telegraph cables that first connected Europe and North America. This was the very first way you've ever sent a message across the Atlantic Ocean without putting someone across the boat. And the ships that laid these cables and maintained them were stationed right here at Cable Wharf. Continuing on, we have the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic. You see the under construction section, that's a new boathouse, and they also own the buildings behind that. This is the largest maritime museum anywhere in North America. They have some absolutely amazing exhibits. If you're a similar enough nerd to me, you can lose about a week of your life in there. The largest exhibit is beside us right now. This white boat, green down at the waterline, is the CSS Acadia. This is a scientific ship, and specifically a hydrologic survey vessel that was first used to survey Canada's Arctic waters. Because of that, it is a very well-made boat, and is the only vessel to survive World War I, World War II, and the Halifax explosion. Next up, with the A1A1 painted on its stern, is the HMCS Sackville. This is a Flower-class corvette, and in fact is the only surviving Flower-class corvette anywhere in the world. These are World War II era vessels. They were mainly used for dealing with enemy submarines, and this one specifically was mostly tasked with protecting convoys across between Europe and North America carrying supplies. These days it is operated as a museum ship, also a very cool thing to check out. Continuing on here, we have kind of the market area of the waterfront. If you haven't had lunch yet, great place to stop off for that. It's also where all the big fancy yachts show up around this time of year, mainly because literally no one else can afford the mooring fees in this section. This one here right now, the SV Christopher, it isn't just a sailing yacht, but it's an incredibly cool one, an absolutely massive vessel. Anyone who is familiar with boats, this thing does have bow and stern side-to-side thrusters for docking, something you will never see on a sailboat, just a testament to how massive that thing is. Continuing on, up our port bow here, we have George's Island. So this is named after King George II, same as that fort up on top of Citadel Hill, and it has a port of its own. It's called Fort Charlotte, named after King George's wife. Originally, it was mainly a lookout point. They have a great view over everyone coming and going in the mouth of the harbour. They have their own set of signal flags for warning people up on top of Citadel Hill. They also do, of course, have their own set of cannons, just in case there's anyone to chase off. During World War I and II, we had submarine nets that closed off the mouth of the harbour to German U-boats. They were tied off to the Halifax and Dartmouth sides, and in the middle they were tied off to George's Island. These days, it's operated by Parks Canada. It's a natural historic site, a very cool one to check out. Although, if you are interested in going, I will say they're only open on the weekends this time of year. Now, Pier 21 was originally an immigration port. It's where most people who immigrated to Canada in the 20th century would have arrived, especially from Europe after World War II. These days, it's an immigration museum, so great place to learn about the history of immigration in Canada. Also, if you are looking into your family history, it might be a great place to start. They have very detailed records from both Pier 21 itself and all across the country, and they have researchers who can help you navigate it. Brief intermission. Can be a little bit bumpy, we're just going back up onto the ramp, so make sure you're firmly seated for this bit. Last thing I can tell you guys here, over on our right-hand side, through that archway, is the original Keats Brewery. Now, they do still do a little brewing on site, but it's more of a historic area these days. I do highly recommend the doors if you are interested. It's kind of the main employer of all the theater students here in Halifax, so it's a lot of fun. They also do have samples included if you are old enough. But one of the things about us here in Halifax is we really do like our beer. Part of what this meant is we elected the namesake, Mr. Alexander Keith, as mayor, not once, not twice, but 3 separate times. In fact, on that note, though, I am afraid it is the saddest part of the tour. It is time for us to say goodbye. I hope everyone's enjoyed the time on board. If you You want to get a review? As a final note, Berth here has done an absolutely amazing job driving what is literally a boat through what were originally horse tracks. You can please give him a big round of applause.
Extra. Oh my god, that's delicious. It actually tastes like pistachio. Not like vanilla.
That concludes this video. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.